Okay, can we kill the back lights? Check, check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Go as loud as I can. Check, check. I keep saying this, people are going to bring me a check, I hope. Checks, anyone got checks? Just leave the amount blank, I'll take care of everything.
Got a void check?
Hang on, I'm going to shut it off, because I'm like technologically challenged. Oh, that's all I need, thank you. There we go, all right. Well, good morning everyone and welcome to Cafe Church, especially if you're here for the first time. I don't know if we've got any first time visitors today. Most everybody's a repeat offender, right? Yeah, okay, good. Good to have you with us. Love having you here at Cafe Church. We've got an excellent meal laid on afterwards. We hope you get to hang around. That's part of the cafe experience. It's not just coming here and hearing me speak or hearing others speak. It's part of the experience is actually hanging out and having food together, which is always a good thing to do. I'm doing a passage today. Someone inspired me earlier in the week to come up with this. They did it inadvertently. They didn't say, Steve, please talk about this. We're having a discussion, and the topic came up. And the topic is armor, which is what that video was kind of about earlier, the armor video. That was in the context of a relationship, trying to protect himself from being hurt by the woman who he had the difficulty with. We're going to look at it from a different perspective today. Today, we're going to look at what it means to truly protect ourselves in a dangerous world. And let's face it, sometimes the world is pretty dangerous. Sometimes because we put ourselves in positions where we shouldn't, and sometimes just because something's happening around us we have no control over. So what I'd like to do today is we're going to do a brief review of last week's materials. Well, they're going to look at some examples of what it's like to be unprotected. And I have a personal example I'll share with you from when I was 16 of living dangerously. We're going to look at a biblical perspective, and I'm going to give you a kind of a modern day analogy. We'll have a dig deeper time and a challenge time. So 5 parts: a review, an example of what it means to be unprotected, a biblical perspective, we'll dig deeper a bit, and then we'll go into the challenge time. But as we always do, we're going to start with the review. Oh yeah, here we are. Good. Sorry. So on one slide, my mind's one slide behind the discussion. We're good now. Okay, good. We are good. So, what did we talk about last week? The Good Samaritan. Thank you, Sarah. Absolutely right. The Good Samaritan, which is a true story, or is it something else? It's a parable. So it didn't really happen. Jesus told a story to illustrate an idea. As far as we know, it wasn't a real story. Okay? What else did we learn about from this passage?
To help others.
Yeah, so we are to be compassionate and help others. Thank you, Peter. That's very good. I said that calling someone a good Samaritan in that time was kind of analogous today to calling somebody a good what? Nazi, or Ku Klux Klan member, or a biker, like someone in like Hell's Angels, right? It'd be like saying that. To the Jews, this was a contradiction in terms. How can it be a good Samaritan? How can he be a good Samaritan? That's impossible. The Samaritans are all bad. Right? So we talked about that. What were Jesus' final instructions to the lawyer that he was sharing the story with? Does anybody remember what the punchline was in that passage?
Now go and do it yourself.
Do it likewise, right? So he said to him, who in this story was the neighbor? Right? And the response, the lawyer said, well, the one who showed mercy, who was a Samaritan who showed mercy to the Jews. And he said, go and do likewise. And that's our command as well, is to go and show mercy to people. Now, I briefly introduced the idea, because we talked about the fact there's, 7,999,999,999 people in the world other than you. And if you took on all the world's problems, were merciful and compassionate to everybody, you'd be a basket case in about a week, right? If you lasted that long. Even in Kingston alone, there's 130,000 people, within, let's say, a reasonable driving distance. We can't be, involved in all their lives trying to help them and be compassionate to all those people. So how do you figure out what you're supposed to be doing? How do you know? You do, Neil?
You do what you can.
Okay? You can burn yourself out though, doing what you can, because you just keep going. You feel you know you.
How do you put yourself in that pose?
How do you what? Sorry, Jennifer.
How do you put yourself in that pose to accentuate anything?
Not sure if I got it. Could you rephrase it for me?
You're not the.
What's that? Sorry.
You're not the.
Okay, we'll talk after. We'll get it after. You're probably saying it, and I'm sure you have a good point. I wasn't quite catching it. I apologize. Yes, right.
It's the opportunity when it comes in your path.
Okay, yeah.
God crosses your path, you can
You
act
hit the
on it,
main
or you
point.
can-
Yeah, so God presents opportunities. So what I would say is, it's the difference, and I should have emphasized this more last week, and I did, but we got so involved in the discussion, I just kind of lost track of time. I didn't cover everything I was supposed to. So it's the difference between doing a good thing and a God thing. And they are not always the same thing. Whatever God calls us to do is inherently good, for starters. But all the good things we do are not necessarily God things. If we're not called to do them, if God's not saying, Steve, I want you to get involved here, Alexa, I want you involved here, Fred, I want you involved here, then it's not a God thing, and we shouldn't be doing it. So that's why I say you can be overwhelmed by the need in your community or in your family or whatever. What you need to do is be going to God to seek wisdom, discernment, if you will, on who you're to get, who you're to try and help or what you're to try and do. Because otherwise, you're on a track to burnout. And I've met many people who just did it because people kept asking, they burned themselves out, and that is the big risk, right? Then you need the help, not the other people. You're the person who needs the compassion now. So those are the main points from last week. Good responses on that. So thanks for that. So that's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Great story, which many of you are probably familiar with even before I talked about it last week. We're going to move into part 2 now, which is today's topic. So this is a very famous, iconic photo. Anyone know what year this photo was taken? Can you Neil?
Empire State Building.
No, it's not actually, but it is a famous New York landmark. So you got the city right.
Chrysler Building.
It was back then. It was the Rockefeller Building, but I think it's been renamed. But when it was built, they were actually building the Rockefeller Building. Of course, he was a very rich American, very generous philanthropist, and a very generous person. So, even earlier, in the 20s. Now, here's the funny thing about this. This is one of the most famous photos in America. Right? You show this photo, oh, I've seen that photo before. But the interesting thing is, now what you think is, okay, there's a bunch of guys eating their lunch on a steel beam at whatever, 60 stories up. Now, that's not normally where I eat my lunch. How many people would be comfortable eating their lunch on that beam? Hands up if you're in that category. Okay, so most of us aren't, right? That would be a rather terrifying experience. You'll notice the complete absence of any safety gear.
Yeah.
No helmets, no steel toe boots, no harness. You're just hanging out eating lunch on a
The guy on
beam.
the end with the whiskey bottle.
Yeah. So
It's a real safe.
it's like you gotta trust your friends, right? You know what? You don't want a practical joker in that job going, I told you, and the guy's like, you fall off. So this actually is a staged photo. The people in it aren't actually construction workers. Apparently they're all Irish immigrants who were looking for money. So on a dare, they did this. They were paid for it. They needed money, and they did it. So it's not actually what you would call a natural construction scene. It's a totally fabricated photo. Okay?
No, it isn't.
They are. No, they really are on a beam 60 stories up. But they try to make it look like this is just a bunch of everyday construction workers sitting on a beam eating their lunch. That wasn't it. The whole thing was staged. Okay? But it became this iconic photograph.
I know, it was a stage.
Yeah. All right? So, my question for you is this. Tell me about a time when you did something where you felt you were at risk or you were lacking adequate protection. Yes, Peter?
I think when I was saving that gentleman there from the fair,
Oh, yeah.
I was lacking, that was a dangerous situation.
So was there smoke all over the place and
Yeah.
fire? Like,
There was no fire, but mostly smoke.
smoke. Yeah, you could have died of smoke inhalation, right? And it's hard to find people, right? Like when it's really smoky. You don't rescue them. Yeah, Peter was involved in rescuing a fellow who inadvertently set his apartment on fire.
You're doing all right.
Yeah, got him out. Yeah. Okay. So what would you have liked to have had, Peter? What would have been a good set of equipment to bring in with you to an event like that?
I should have had something over my face.
Yeah, like a mask, right?
Yeah.
Contained breathing apparatus.
I did take time.
No, I mean, you go to the hardware store, buy a breathing apparatus, asbestos suit. Meanwhile, the building's burning down.
Yeah.
Again, I'm safe now. And you get there, and there's like little black sticks, and that's all that's left of the apartment building, right? So you didn't have time, obviously,
I didn't go in the building.
No.
The door was shut. I just got
Yeah.
out of the hallway.
What else would have been handy in that instance? Fire extinguisher, right? We got one at the door there and one at the door there. Okay, so if you ever need it, just grab it and go. For a fire, okay? I mean, I'm not talking like this for a party trick. Okay, yeah, I need.
Yeah, the last time I was in that situation when it was last Monday, I was locked in my washroom.
Oh! And what would you have liked to have had to get out of there, I mean?
Well, the thing is, nobody was at home other than me.
Oh.
There was no phone between the washroom. I was in my underwear, I'm sorry, but I ended up with the door handle in my hand.
Oh boy.
The only thing that I could do, and I did, was
Screwdriver would be
there was nothing there. There was just a couple of shampoos. So,
It's not a very handy tool, by
not
the way.
very
along with
handy.
shampoo.
So I jumped out of the window on the balcony.
Wow.
But there is no entrance to the balcony, and
So now you're in your underwear on the
I'm in
balcony.
my
This story is getting better.
It's winter.
I mean, come on, take over. This is just too good. I'm taking the day off. Come on out.
more dangerous.
Just be careful if Eileen ever invites you to dinner. It's gonna get weird, okay?
that was so embarrassing. I think the window, neighbors just watching me, I think. Have you heard about the Shane Walk?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I think they thought that's it.
That's the time when the police would show up.
Exactly.
That's just their identification that you're standing
What
in
if
your
police would
underwear.
hit my wall? What happened last week? You
Yeah.
know? Can you imagine it happens at the same time that I'm on the balcony? So I look out of the, it's like the first floor. I look, there's no stairs,
Yep.
no door to the balcony. I could have just jumped from the wall.
That would have been dangerous.
That would have been dangerous. I didn't want to end up with some broken
Yeah.
bone. What I did was I knocked on the washroom on my neighbor.
Oh, boy.
That was the second time maybe we saw each other. I'm in my underwear in the balcony at her begging to let me in. Confused. So I just tried to explain what's going on here. So I had to take out the window again, go into the building in my underwear. So she just gave me a blanket. I rolled myself. And the other thing is my apartment door is locked too, so I have
Oh,
to call
man.
the landlord to open it for me. So yeah, I've been
These
there.
girls greeted by you and killed them. Okay.
I'm not quite sure he's
So
gonna
there
exchange
are
my
several
contract.
things you could have done that would have been very dangerous, including jumping off into the fire exit. Okay, anybody else? A time when you did, yes, Ruby.
That's the time when I went scuba diving without knowing how to swim and had proper training.
I can't see anything wrong with that. Without training and knowing how to swim.
Yeah,
And how did that go for you?
was there.
How did that go for you?
It was actually good until.
Totally the wrong message I want, but that's okay.
But because I didn't know how to swim, I was
Yeah.
trying to stand up, so I was creating this sandstorm
Yes?
about 65 feet under.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to stand up until Darren finally caught me, turned me sideways,
Yeah.
and then he had to he
Oh, yeah,
used
yeah.
up all his oxygen trying to
Get
get
you
me.
calmed down in
Yeah.
the right direction. Man, that can be dangerous. That can be very dangerous,
But
yeah.
I guess it was okay because they let me do it in Mexico.
Yeah. Yes, Holly.
When I was traveling to Hyper 7,
Yeah.
you know those poles that's outside,
Yeah.
the sign, or whatever that was?
Yeah.
I will put my tongue and lick the pole,
Oh, nice.
and my tongue got stuck.
But here you are alive and you still have your tongue. Yeah, licking frozen poles is generally a bad idea. I think the word's out on that one. Yes, Jennifer.
April too.
You what, sorry? Are you okay, honey? You love the Lord. That's good.
I didn't go inside.
Yeah.
And then we drove past.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, dear. I'm going to tell you about my story. That is the Coulson Cove Generating Station. Not 1978, I don't think, but this is a generating station, a coal burning generating station off the coast of New Brunswick, or it's on the coast of New Brunswick, not far from St. John. In 1978, I was 16 years old, and I was just starting high school. And I got a call from my grandfather, who knew everybody. He'd worked in the St. John Sugar Refinery as a maintenance guy for years, then he went to work for Irving Oil, and he knew I was looking for good summer employment. So he gave me a call, he goes, Steve, I got a job for you. Because it pays like $22 an hour, which for a 16-year-old in 1978 was like winning the lottery. He said, what do I got to do, Grampy? He said, well, I'll give you this number, you phone this guy. So it was kind of a dodgy deal, okay? It was a company from Montreal that had been contracted by the Coulson Cove Generating Station to go in and do testing. And they needed a laborer. So I was kind of high, I was paid cash, I was not covered by workman's compensation. Okay? I was totally off the radar. I did not exist from the perspective of the employee world, right? I was just one of these illegal guys, hired on to do this. But it was good money. So I worked in this building, and you can see these 3 blocks here? They're 6 stories tall. Right? They don't look at them. They're 6 stories high. So our job was to go inside those 3 silos, which were thousands and thousands of pipes in rows and columns. And it was like a Star Wars movie, like where you enter at each floor level, like you'd enter say from the 5th floor, and you climb out across the pipes. Then there was a 4-foot gap across the next set of pipes. So you put a board down and shimmy across it. Okay, like it was claustrophobic. You had no room to move. You had like 2 feet, and it's pitch black. Again, to bring your own lighting in. And our job was to take this little device that was like a magnet. And what you do is you put it on the pipe and you spin this wheel, and when the magnet let go, you take a reading. What it was doing was measuring how thick the pipe was. Because it was a steam plant, and they were concerned about the pipes corroding, and then they'd eventually have a rupture. So that's basically what we were doing. We were testing pipes. So they had all the safety gear there. They had helmets and harnesses, but none of the guys wore. So they said, you want to wear safety gear? What do you think I said?
No.
Why?
Gets in the way.
Yeah, because I'd be the only one. I'd be like a whip, right? Yeah, I don't need safety gear. I'm good, man. We're okay. I can hit 6 stories up. If I fall and I bounce, we're good, right? So I did that for a summer of crawling through these pipes with no safety gear on at 5 to 6 stories high at the highest point. And all the protective gear was there. So what's the worst case for me? Yeah, I get killed, right? Another option is I fall down and I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life, but I'm not under workman's compensation because none of my hiring was documented anywhere, right? I don't even know how I got on the site. I guess security must have been pretty lax. But yeah, so that was my summer. Now I made a pile of money. And I did get through safety. I didn't hurt myself. I had a couple near misses. Going across the board from one panel to the other. Oh, you guys are champions. Thank you, dear. I had a couple times when I just about went over. Now I did that because I didn't want to look bad in front of the guys, the long-term guys, who also should have been wearing safety gear, by the way. I'm not sure what would have happened if they had had an accident and they weren't wearing it. They might not have been covered, I don't know. So I did it because of a fear of what other people thought of me, and in doing so, exposed myself to a very, very high level of risk. This is dangerous work if you're not hooked up properly. So that was my summer at Coulson Cove. I still thank my grandfather for getting me the job. I needed cash. It certainly did that. So most of us would recognize the need to wear protective equipment when doing dangerous things, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. The good news is that there's actually a story about this in the Bible. It's a metaphor or an analogy. And this one is about our lives with God and how we need to protect ourselves from not just physical attack, but spiritual attack. And this passage is found in a chapter of the Bible, a book of the Bible called Ephesians. It's in Ephesians chapter 6. Now, Ephesians was a letter that was written to the church in Ephesus. And it, like many of the letters that were written, most of them we believe are written by Paul, it's advice to the church on how to do things and teaching and doctrine. Because you got to remember at this stage, the New Testament doesn't exist. They have the Old Testament, But the New Testament, all the letters that are in the New Testament now, were not, some of them hadn't even been written yet. And they hadn't been consolidated into what we call the New Testament. So they didn't really have a Bible in the sense that you and I would think of. So if you had a church that was going through a struggle, oftentimes the best way to deal with it was phone a friend, except they didn't have a phone. Right? So they would send a letter and say, Dear Paul, our church is struggling with X, Y, and Z. And Paul would respond back, Dear Ephesians, here's what you need to do about that. And that's what the kind of tone of this letter is. So I'm going to read it to you. So in the translation I have, which is the New Living Translation, they insert the subtext, which is not actually in the original Greek. And it's entitled The Whole Armor of God. That's what the title of this passage is. So Ephesians 6:10-18, this is what it says. A final word. Be strong in the Lord and His mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we're not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world. I think a lot of times we think that our enemies are people we can actually reach out and touch. What this passage says is the thing you really got to worry about is not the people you can see. It's the sort of spiritual principalities we can't see. The evil. He goes on to say, against the mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places or spiritual places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor, so you will be able to resist the enemy in time of evil. Then after the battle, you will be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness, sometimes translated as the breastplate. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news or the gospel, so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all of these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Put on salvation as your helmet, and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, or the Bible. Pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere. Now I'm going to pull that passage up, and I've highlighted the parts which are actually the pieces of the armor, which I'll let you take a look at for a minute, and then we're going to talk about that.
See, this is the armor of God, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I highlight a few things. The belt of truth. So belt was what would hold your sword sheath and your clothing, like to tighten it up. The body armor of God's righteousness is the breastplate. So often Roman soldiers had this steel plate that would protect their heart and vital organs from arrows or sword cuts, that sort of thing. Shoes to protect because your feet are very vulnerable, right? Like if you ever stepped on a rock, you can understand how painful even a small thing can be to your feet. So that's to protect your feet. It allows you to stand firm. The shield, right? Shield stops arrows, sword blows, and so on. Shield is faith. And then a helmet, protect your head, obviously. And then a sword, which is your weapon. That's the offensive piece. So everything that's listed here up till now is defensive, right? It's protective. The sword, that is the Word of God, is actually offensive, which is an interesting idea we're going to explore in a second. So any questions on this passage so far? Any thoughts? I encourage interactions. Don't be shy. Anybody? Yes, go ahead, Alexa.
It's cool how like all of us be like safe, like you just have part of them but no.
You have so stolen my sermon, girl! Yeah, no, it's good. You hit the nail on the head. That is the most important thing I wanted to draw out of this. Thank you. This is the perfect time to do it. All these pieces are essential. Does anyone know the story of Achilles? Legendary Greek figure?
Yeah.
What happened with Achilles? Anybody remember?
His heel. His weak spot was his heel.
His heel, and he got an arrow in the heel, and that's what resulted eventually in his death. So Achilles was this legendary Greek figure in the Iliad, and there was a conflict between the Trojans and the Greeks, and Paris, who was on the other side, fired an arrow, and the one part of Achilles' body that was not protected was his heel, and that's where the arrow went. And that's exactly the point Alexa makes here, and it's absolutely true for us. If you're missing any of these pieces of the armor, it doesn't matter how well made the other pieces are, that's where you're vulnerable. And the passage makes frequent reference to how tricky Satan is, right? He's sneaky, he's devious, he's got multiple strategies. He will exploit your weakness. He's not stupid. He's not going to go after you in the areas where you're strong. He's going to go after you in the areas where you're weak. So fantastic, Alexa. You are getting a gold star. If I had one, you would get a gold star. Yeah, that was awesome. Man, that's good. I love it when that stuff comes out. So, pictorially, that's what this looks like. Okay, so I don't know how accurate this picture of a Roman is, but you get the idea, right? You got a Roman soldier. He's got a helmet to protect his head, a breastplate to protect his heart and vital organs. He's got a belt to hold sort of all of his gear up, and that's where his sword sheath is. He's got a sword, which is the offensive weapon. His feet are protected by the gospel, and he's got this shield of faith. Now, what I intend to do with this is, between now and Christmas, we're gonna shift. Mike's speaking next week, and then we're gonna shift into a series of Advent preparations. So the 5 Sundays before Christmas, we're gonna take more of an Advent theme. But after Christmas, I'm gonna do a multi-part series. I might do 1 or 2 of these weapons at a time, or I might do offense and defense. I haven't quite figured it out yet. But after Christmas, we're gonna go into this in more detail. Today, I just want to kind of give you a primer. It's like this movie trailer. Okay, so you're getting the movie trailer. This blockbuster thing is coming out. Get ready for it. So this is a great sort of analogy that Paul uses to describe how you protect yourself. Now, let me ask you a question. How familiar do you think the people of Jesus' day would be with this analogy? And why? How familiar do you think the people of, Paul's time, Jesus' time, 1st century, Palestine and Mediterranean, would have been with this analogy?
Mary.
Why is that?
This is technology of the era.
Absolutely, Paul. This is how people dressed in black. And remember, Palestine, or Israel, was under Roman occupation. Israel was garrisoned with the Roman legion. There were Roman checkpoints and forts all over the place. The people of that time, and of course the Romans, their empire spanned the entire Mediterranean. All these places like Ephesus and so on, where the church was planted, where the Roman presence was there. People would have very easily connected to this. Now here's the problem. Most of us don't run around dressed up like this except at Halloween, right? Okay? Fair comment? Okay, good. So we need a more modern analogy. And I thought, well, what's a modern analogy? And I got it. I'm going to show you what it is.
The giant redwood, the larch, the fir, the mighty Scots pine, the smell of fresh timber, the crash of mighty trees. With my best girlie by my side, we sing, sing, sing. I'm a lumberjack and I'm home-day. I say long nights on a cold day. He's a lumberjack, he's all day. He's all night and he works all day. I cut down trees, I eat my lunch, I go to the laboratory. Wednesdays I go shopping, have fun and scones for tea. Cuts down trees, he eats his lunch, he goes to the laboratory. On Wednesdays he goes shopping, has fun and scones for tea. He's up and he's okay, he sits all night and he works all day. I cut down trees to skip and jump, I like to press wildflowers. I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars. Some trees, sits and jumps, he likes to press wildflowers. He puts on women's clothing and hangs around in bars. He's up like he's okay, sits all night and he works all day. I got the trees on high heels, bendies and a guard. Just like my dear mama. I got that feeling when I hear and the
Okay. Oh, I'm a little loud. There we are. So I thought a lumberjack would be a good choice. I did a speech at Toastmasters a few years ago about how this song ruined my life as a lumberjack, right? Every time I say, oh, I'm a lumberjack, they go, oh, I'm a lumberjack in Iowa, okay. This song, it came out in the late 60s, I think it was, and it just, it ruined the lumberjack trade. It's terrible. So, we're going to look at a modern day lumberjack, and also one from the 60s. Now, I can speak with some authority on this because I actually have 20 acres of land, and 14 acres of that is hardwood, and if I want to harvest that wood, then I can burn it in my wood stove and save money, which I do. So I have the full gear, which my daughter Lucy is graciously going to demonstrate for us now. Please welcome Lucy, the lumberjack! All right. Come on up on stage here. Okay. There she is. Yep. So come on, you just stand over to that far side there, off the screen. You can put the chainsaw down if you want. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take that passage and I'm going to kind of modernize it to the lumberjack context for you, okay? So all those things, the protective gear. So there's two main ways to get injured or killed being a lumberjack. Does anybody know what the two main types of things are that could go wrong? Yeah.
One is a tree falling on you.
A tree falling on you. Okay, very good. When I got the instructions to my Husqvarna chainsaw, it said, make sure, make sure you have two clear paths of exit when you're cutting a tree. Okay, because invariably the tree will find one of them, and you can't make your escape that way because it's coming down, so you need to move around the tree and go the other way. So far, I haven't managed to kill myself or put myself at risk by not following that rule. I always clear away some brush to make sure if I have to make a run for it, then I'm good to go. And a couple times that tree's not quite gone where I thought it would go, and I've had to make use of that alternative trail. What's the second way you can get hurt? The chainsaw! Yes, the chainsaw. Now, you can see on my red chaps there, see those orange chaps?
Yeah.
Those are special pants, and they're designed to stop chainsaw blades. And I know, because it's done it twice.
Wow.
Now, before I got them, I also had chainsaw marks on some of my clothes. And I realized it was just cutting through my clothes like a hot knife through butter. I was lucky I didn't like cut my leg or hit an artery. So not long after that, I went up and got the chaps. And those are lifesavers. So those are two main ways you can hurt yourself. You can also falling out of a tree, although they recommend, unless you're like a trained professional, do not go up in a tree with a chainsaw. That's just a little tip there for you kids. Okay, don't do that.
Can I share a story?
Yeah.
So this is my dad when when I was a little girl, I noticed that one of my dad's teeth looked different than the other ones. It's because he had a tooth inserted into his gum. So when I was older, and I said, why did you lose your tooth? Like, what happened, Dad? And he was out chainsawing one day, and you know how the hip whips around like this? The chain part actually broke, and the chain came whipping at him. And of all the places in his face for that chain to hit him on that too. I think it could have been the eye, cutting open your face. So there's a chainsaw story for you.
Yep. Very dangerous tool if not used properly. So I'm going to walk you through some of the protective elements with a modern perspective on Ephesians. This is not the whole armor of God. This is the whole chainsaw safety protective measures of God. Right? That's what this is. So we have, to start with, the helmet of salvation. Now what do you notice about that helmet? Yes, the eyes. It's got a face screen on it, right? What else?
It's got an ear.
Ears, right? Because chainsaws are loud if they're working. And then it's got the helmet itself in case something falls on your head, right? So three things right off the bat in that one helmet. Okay, she's got the chaps of righteousness on. Okay? The chaps of righteousness. And what do, those chaps?
Protect from the blade.
Yes, and most commonly, if you're going to injure yourself with a chainsaw, it's going to be on your leg. Because your arms are behind the saw, right? So it tends to be like you slip, or you got your foot up on a piece of wood and you cut and it lets go. So oftentimes when people cut themselves with a chainsaw, it's their legs that get it, legs or feet. So that's very important to have those chaps.
Where's your origin?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. She's got the coveralls of faith on to protect against double fiery arrows. So why do I have coveralls on?
Protect yourselves in case the saw slips.
Yeah, so the coveralls, although they don't have the same material as the chaps do, they're very thick coveralls. So if I were to brush a part that's not protected by the chaps, then there's a pretty good chance that the blade won't go through. Like, I get a level of protection from
I
it.
was cutting wood one day, I was cutting the guy something.
There you go.
Because he reached down, I told him to stay
Yeah.
over, I was cutting. I cut back his coat. I
Wow,
was lucky I could cut him in time.
wow.
So I know-
They're a dangerous tool.
I know what
I
you're talking
know.
about.
They're a dangerous tool. You gotta be careful with them. She has the safety harness of truth. That's the belt, okay?
They don't fall.
So if you are up in a tree or on a high place, and I never cut up high, but if I were, that's basically a roof harness. So if you're reshingling, whatever, you put a harness on and you anchor it to something solid. So if you roll off, you stop, right? So that's the belt. She's got the steel-toed boots of the gospel, right? That's the shoes of the gospel we heard about earlier. Those are steel-toed boots. You'll notice there's some nicks in those steel-toed boots.
Yeah.
Okay, so once I was down at the creek cutting wood, and I had hip waders on. They're only made of rubber, right? And I wasn't too worried because I was mostly in the water, and I figured, well, the blade's never actually going to get down where my feet are. I'm in 3 feet of water. Well, I moved up onto the shore to do some trimming, and the saw slipped and went into the boot. Okay? It ripped a half-inch hole in the front of my boot. It missed my toe by millimeters. Like I wasn't even nicked. Went, okay, no more cutting on the ground with a chainsaw without steel-toe boots on. You can see the nicks in my boot. Those are from the chainsaw when it slipped. And every time it stops, right? So that's the gospel in this analogy. And then finally, pick up the chainsaw now, Lucy, if you can.
Does everyone understand now why I get really anxious when he goes into the forest?
Yeah. And I look like a Martian. Okay, so this chainsaw is what you do your business with, right? All this gear is great, but if you go out in the woods with that gear and no chainsaw or no axe, what do you got? A forest, right? That's what you have when you started. You're not going to cut down the mighty larch or the redwood in the forest of British Columbia with your girl in your arms. You can't do that unless you've got a chainsaw. And this is the business end of the lumberjack trade. This is what brings the trees down and gets them all cut up. In the context of the analogy that we heard in Ephesians, this is the sword of the truth. This is the thing that pierces through the darkness. This is the offensive weapon we have. So, for example, you can actually go get undressed. Let's hear it for Lucy, though. He's a lumberjack. He works all right and he all day. He cuts down trees, he eats for lunch, and goes to the lattice tree. I think he's going there now, actually, to change. Thank you, Lucy. That was awesome. Okay. So, there's been times when I meet with people, and you know, in the context of, say, people who don't know Christ, whether they're an atheist or believe in another religion, part of what I can do to promote the gospel with them is to use Scripture to illustrate truth. That's my offensive weapon. It's not a defensive weapon. Well, it can be defensive. It can help protect you as well. But it's an offensive weapon. That's what you actually do the business with. You present the gospel to people. You present truth from Scripture. So I've given you a very short overview of these elements of the armor today. What we're going to do after Christmas is we'll start to work through a couple of those. We'll look at each of those. Look at the helmet, look at the shoes, look at the belt, look at the shield, and all those things. And talk about how you can make those well. Now, I had a chance when I was in Germany to go to a museum. It was the coolest museum in the world, honestly. It was the Museum of Armor. Okay, huge building. They had armor from the time it was invented. Most of it was medieval armor, though, which is when armor was really popular. But I took 2 little boys with me. So what happened was there was a mom in our church who had 2 little boys, and she was divorced from her husband or separated at the time. We can't remember which. So Dad wasn't really in the picture. I thought, well, I'm going to spend some time with these boys and we'll have some fun. They were like 5 and 7 at the time. Robert and who's the other one? I forgot. Anyway, so I took them to the museum. Well, they were like kids in a candy shop. All the stuff they'd seen on TV and in books. Here were full suits of armor, including armor for horses. Like they had like a mock-up of a horse in full medieval armor. And this is all original armor. But the one thing that they remembered and that I remembered out of this trip was there was a breastplate of armor, very thick armor. And it had a big dent in it that looked like a musket ball. So what happened was, around the time gunpowder was invented, knights were still using armor for protection. And when gunpowder first was invented and was weaponized, then there's a new threat. And the threat was, a black powder bullet going through your breastplate. So what they used to do was test fired it. So they'd make the armor, then they load up a gun and fire a bullet at it. And if it didn't go through, the guy would buy it. That was quality control back in the 1500s. So they were so impressed by this that one of the little boys, after we did our trip, drew a picture up of our day. And I still have it. It's in my album at home. I should have looked it up. And he drew pictures of knights and horses and armor and stuff. But he drew this picture of this breastplate with the bullet dent in it, because this stuck in his mind that they would actually fire a bullet at the thing to test it. And what we're going to look at is how we can build armor that actually will resist those musket balls and fire arrows and other things that Satan tries to use to bring us down. So that's what we're going to do in the way ahead. Today, though, I want to ask you a question. It kind of relates to what Jennifer brought up earlier. She said, where is God in all this? Right? That's a good question. So, let's look at that. Verse 6:10 says this, be strong in the Lord and His mighty power. What does that mean to you? In the context of our discussion today.
Have faith.
Okay, so have faith. In what way, Paul?
In context of this discussion?
Yeah.
I think the armor is some sort of faith in this discussion.
Okay, yep. Okay, good. Yep. Anybody else?
Jesus' holy word is hope and sandals.
Yep.
Where are we? Who are we?
But what this passage is saying is He is our armor.
No.
He's our protection.
Over there, Steve.
Yeah, Caroline, go ahead.
I was thinking the same thing as you. It's like, the more you get into reading the Word of God, the more it stays present in your mind.
Okay, yeah.
That will increase your faith, and just by faith alone, you know that
Yeah.
God still protects you. No matter what.
Yeah, so you've heard me give the story before of an Olympic athlete, right? You want to be an Olympic athlete in the decathlon. The way to not do it is to watch videos at home of other decathletes and eat Doritos in your underwear. We all agree that's probably not a great training regime. How do you become a great decathlete?
By doing it.
By doing it, by training every day, right? You exercise. And spiritually, we need to do that too. We need to spend time in the Word of God. We need to spend time in prayer. We need to hang out with other Christians who can mentor us and teach us. Going to service on Sunday is helpful. That can fill in some of the gaps along the way. But that can't be the only thing you do. You won't be strong if that's all you do. Right? You got to practice. Very good, Jennifer.
Loving every day.
Absolutely. So it's little things every day that build that strong protection, that faith that Paul talked about earlier. So that's a very important piece. Yeah.
I think you gotta pray every night for protection.
Sure,
Night and
absolutely.
night
Some
and
regular
morning.
prayer, absolutely. That's
And then
very
if you are in
good.
danger, pray
Yep.
for that too.
Yeah. I mean, there's a tendency for us to try and be the tough guy or girl and say, well, I don't need God, I can handle this on my own. But what Peter is saying is exactly correct. We need to recognize our own frailty and pray to God for protection. Yes.
I like what Peter said too, because this armor, if you really were to own it, would require maintenance.
Yes, it would. Absolutely. Yep. It's got to be polished up and cleaned up and maintained, not left out in the rain, and otherwise it won't work. Yeah, very good. Okay, so this is a lead-in to what we're going to do after Christmas. We're going to look at this whole armor thing, or in the case that I presented, the lumberjack's protective wear for good forestry practice. What I encourage you to do this week is read Ephesians 6:10 to 18 as kind of a warm-up. Do that as part of your devotions. And as you read through each piece of the armor, which I didn't have time to cover in any detail today, ask yourself, what does this mean? What really is a helmet of salvation? What is footwear of the good news? What is that really? Ask yourself that question, because that would be a good primer for where we're going in the new year. And if you have a question, you want to email me and ask me, we can start that discussion long before the new year. But I encourage you to go through, ask yourself, what does this really mean, this piece of armor? There's 6 listed. What does that one really mean to me? Because as Alexa very correctly pointed out, if any one of those is weak, you are vulnerable. Right? Satan will find a way in. And so that's the question for you today. Is there any of your armor that needs to be fixed up or that is missing? Sometimes it's not working properly, and sometimes it's non-existent. Right? There's both possibilities. If you're not a follower of Christ yet, I encourage you to bring yourself under God's protective armor. But what Caroline said earlier about, Jesus is that shield for us. He is our protection. Become a follower of Christ. Be a disciple. And that's pretty simple. You just have to believe that He was who He said He was and is. He was the Son of God. To repent, so recognize that He died for our sins, and our only way to be reconciled to God is to seek forgiveness for those sins through Christ. We have to acknowledge we did something wrong, and then we have to repent of it, and then we commit to following Christ. We have, within the Evangelical Missionary Church of Canada, we have this thing called the Sevenfold Way of Following Jesus. There's many different discipleship models out there, but the main thing is we're on that journey to try and draw ourselves closer to Christ and be more Christ-like. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. So those are the 3 steps. Very easy to do. If you would like to talk to me about that after, I'd love to have that discussion with you about how you can become a follower of Christ. That's the first step towards coming under God's protection in what is, quite frankly, a dark and dangerous world at times. So, also homework, find a steel beam somewhere, eat lunch. No, just kidding. I don't hear any stories about that, okay? No, I'm going to give you a disclaimer right now. I did not say that, okay? We have lunch on. We encourage you to hang around. Lots of exciting stuff coming up at the church. Small ball, more details will come out on that later. We got the women's event. We got men's Tuesday night mentoring session. Tons of things happening. We'd love to have you get out to as many of those as you can. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We'll get that information out to you. I'm just going to close with some prayer, and then we'll knock off for today. Lord, I thank you for our time together here. Thank you for the great discussion we've had. We've had a bit of fun, but it is a serious topic. It's very important that we are drawing on you for our protection. You give us the tools, the 6 things that are mentioned specifically in this Ephesians passage. I pray that everyone here today would not leave here until they put on the full armor of God. And it might look a bit clunky and unwieldy like it did on Lucy as she demonstrated my woodworking gear, but we'll grow into it, and that's what you promise us. So, Lord, I just pray for everyone here to know your protection. This I ask in your name. Amen. God bless you, folks. Thanks for a great discussion today. And Ideen, thank you for a particularly hilarious description of your week. I can't wait for next week. I'm on the edge of my seat here. He's got to get his own TV show, doesn't he? Yes, he does. Yes. Get him on Letterman or something.